What's going on, family? Scrapbook Boxing Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. This is part 2 of the Black Murderers Row controversy of Ray Robinson. Now, in the last video, I want to make a quick correction. I said that Rocky Graziano had lost his middleweight championship belt in 1947. I misspoke. Rocky Graziano had defeated Tony Zale in 1947 for the middleweight championship strap. You see, they fought 46, 47, and 48. And that was when Rocky Graziano pulled down the mic and said, "Your boy did it. Somebody up there likes me." But in 1948 was when Rocky Graziano was knocked out in the 3rd round. That's the only fight film available. There's a second fight that's available as well, but it's not as clear as the first fight, the 3rd fight, I should say. But Tony Zale had won back his middleweight championship belt from Rocky Graziano in 1948. So I just wanted to make that correction. But to your left, you have Al Hashtag. He was middleweight champion June 27, 1938 to November 1st, 1938. And then Sully Krieger, who was to your right, would become middleweight champion November 1st, 1938 to June 27th, 1939. Now, at that time, Ray Robinson was in the New York City Golden Gloves. He was also in the Inner City Championships. As an amateur, he didn't turn professional yet, not until 1940. In 1940, Severino Garcia was middleweight champion over Fred Hospitally, and he would lose his title to Ken Overland. Severino Garcia had lost that middleweight championship belt, but they made it a draw. Referee George Blake was paid off, and he called it a draw. So Henry Armstrong would have been middleweight champion of the world in 1940. But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to stick with the actual title holders. Now, October 2nd, 1939 to May 23rd, 1940, Severino Garcia, who was to your left, became middleweight champion. He would lose his title to Kent Overland May 23rd, 1940 to May 9th, 1941. Ken Overland would lose his title to Billy Seuss, who was to your right. And Billy Seuss held that crown May 9th, 1941. But then the NBA would have a champion, and his name would be Tony Zale. Now, Tony Zale would hold the NBA championship belt. He would face a fighter by the name of Georgie Abrams. And Tony Zale would become middleweight champion July 19th, 1940. July 16th, 1947. Now, he held that belt the amount of time he did because of the war. And this is where you started having problems with the Black Murderers Row. Because from 1941 to 1947, technically, Tony Zale was the middleweight champion. But the title was frozen, and he didn't have to defend his title. But in the meanwhile, you had ranked number 1, number 2, Holman Williams, Charlie Burley. Then you'll have Jake LaMotta in there, or you may have Rocky Graziano in there. And at one point, you would have Marcel Sedan. But for the majority of times, you always had Charlie Burley, Holman Williams, or Burt Lytell. And Tony Zale never gave those fighters an opportunity for the middleweight championship strap. Ray Robinson was always ranked between 1942 and 1950 Ray Robinson was always ranked, either welterweight or middleweight. He was number one every time he was ranked. Except for one time he was behind Henry Armstrong. But see, Sugar Ray Robinson couldn't afford to risk his rankings. Because see, Ray Robinson saw what happened to Charlie Burley and Holman Williams. Holman Williams and Charlie Burley were ranked behind one another for many years. But Tony Zale didn't have to defend his title because the title was frozen. So Charlie Burley and Holman Williams was forced to face one another. That's the way they had it set up. They were forced to pick each other off. And that's been going on in boxing for many years. And when they did that, it took one of those men out of the rankings. And Ray Robinson understood that. And that's why he wouldn't take that risk. Now, yes, plenty of stories of Coco Kid dropping Ray Robinson in sparring. Plenty of stories of Eddie Booker and all of the other fighters separating his ribs and sparring and doing this and doing that. But at the end of the day, Ray Robinson needed to become champion. Because had not Ray Robinson become welterweight and middleweight champion, who would you actually have to carry that mantle? So it was a prestigious and strategic move on Ray Robinson's part. Now, my opinion, would I think that Ray Robinson would have defeated Charlie Burley or Holman Williams or Eddie Booker or Little Tiger Aaron Wade or Burt Littell or even Lloyd Marshall? I'll say this. Henry Armstrong would have had the hardest time with Coco Kid because of the style. Charlie Burley would have gave Henry Armstrong a lot of problems because of his style. As far as Ray Robinson is concerned, if Charlie Burley faced Ray Robinson 5 times, Robinson wins 3 out of the 5 times, in my opinion, because of the style. Holman Williams. Ray Robinson would have won 4 out of 5 times with Holman Williams, in my opinion, because of the style. The only problem Ray Robinson really would have had with those guys was Coco Kid, because of the style. You see, Ray Robinson was a featherweight coming out of the amateurs. He turned professional as a lightweight. Now just think about that for one moment. All of these men turned professional in 1940. Ike Williams, Jimmy Bivens, Ezzard Charles, Sugar Ray Robinson, Jake LaMotta. I mean, I can name plenty. But all of these men turned professional in 1940. They knew one another. Because they fought in the amateurs. They all won inner city titles. Burt Littell turned professional in 1940. But Jake LaMotta was a light heavyweight in 1939 when he participated in the Diamond Gloves. Ray Robinson was a featherweight in 1939 when he participated in New York Golden Gloves. Burt Littell was a welterweight. Ezzard Charles, at that point, was middleweight in 1939. Although he started at featherweight. But he was a middleweight in 1939 when he won a Chicago inner city tournament. Ray Robinson was the smallest out of all of those men that turned professional in 1940. Charlie Burley wound up becoming a light heavyweight, California light heavyweight champion when he defeated Oakland Billy Smith. Because Oakland Billy Smith was the California light heavyweight champion. Lloyd Marshall was a middleweight, but he worked his way up to light heavyweight. The smallest man out of that Black Murderers Row was Coco Kid. He challenged from featherweight going up to middleweight. He fought Bat Ballino. Bat Ballino, was a featherweight champion. He had a great war with Billy Patrol. You see, Coco Kid faced Pete Herman. Pete Herman was out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Then he moved to New Orleans. But Ray Robinson got by because of his punching power, his ability to box, IQ, beautiful combinations, ring movement, finesse, ring generalship, his heart, and his chin.